Hello Year 7. So we are going to start today's lesson with you guys putting the date and the title in your on your sheets of paper or on your Word document. Your title today is The Red Room by H.G. Wells. So what we're going to do today is we're going to have a go at explaining the effect of character descriptions in creating an eerie and unsettling atmosphere. So for your starter then, I'd like you to take 3 minutes please. Try and write down something that you think about this opening sentence to this Gothic story. I can assure you, said I, that it will take a very tangible ghost to frighten me. So, write me down what you think about that opening for a ghost story, please. Pause the video whilst you do. Okay, so if you could please open the document entitled The Opening of the Red Room by H.G. Wells, I would like you to read along whilst I read the extract to you. And I would like you to just note down 3 or 4 questions that you have about what's going on whilst I read the extract. So, The Opening of the Red Room by H.G. Wells. I can assure you, said I, that it will take a very tangible ghost to frighten me. And I stood up before the fire with the glass in my hand. It is your own choosing, said the man with the withered arm and glanced at me askance. 28 years, said I have lived, and never a ghost have I seen as yet. The old woman sat staring hard into the fire, her pale eyes wide open. Aye, she broke in, and 28 years you have lived and never seen the likes of this house, I reckon. There's many a things to see, when one's still but 28. She swayed her head slowly from side to side, and many things to see and sorrow for. I half suspected the old people were trying to enhance the spiritual terrors of their house by their droning insistence. I put down my empty glass on the table and looked about the room, and caught a glimpse of myself, abbreviated and broadened to an impossible sturdiness in the queer old mirror at the end of the room. Well, said I, if I see anything tonight, I shall be so much the wiser, for I come to the business with an open mind. It is your own choosing, said the man with the withered arm once more. I heard the faint sound of a stick and a shambling step on the flags in the passage outside. The door creaked on its hinges as a second old man entered, more bent, more wrinkled, more aged even than the first. He supported himself by the help of a crutch. His eyes were covered by a shade, and his lower lip, half averted, hung pale and pink from his decaying yellow teeth. He made straight for an armchair on the opposite side of the table, sat down clumsily, and began to cough. The man with the withered hand gave the newcomer a short glance of positive dislike. The old woman took no notice of his arrival, but remained with her eyes fixed steadily on the fire. I said it's your own choosing, said the man with the withered hand when the coughing had ceased for a while. It's my own choosing, I answered. The man with the shade became aware of my presence for the first time, and threw his head back for a moment, and sidewise to see me. I caught a momentary glimpse of his eyes, small and bright and inflamed. Then he began to cough and splutter again. Why don't you drink? Said the man with the withered arm, pushing the beer towards him. The man with the shade poured out a glassful with a shaking hand, that splashed half as much again on the deal table. A monstrous shadow of him crouched up on the wall, and mocked his action as he poured and drank. I must confess I had scarcely expected these grotesque custodians. There is, to my mind, something inhuman in senility, something crouching and atavistic. The human qualities seem to drop from old people insensibly day by day. The 3 of them made me feel uncomfortable with their gaunt silences, their bent carriage, their evident unfriendliness to me and to one another. And that night, perhaps, I was in the mood for uncomfortable impressions. I resolved to get away from their vague foreshadowings of the evil things upstairs. If, said I, you will show me this haunted room of yours, I will make myself comfortable there. The old man with the cough jerked his head back so suddenly that it startled me, and shot another glance of his red eyes at me from out of the darkness under the shade, but no one answered me. I waited for a minute, glancing from one to the other. The old woman stared like a dead body, glaring into the fire with lacklustre eyes. "If," I said a little louder, "if you will show me to this haunted room of yours, I will relieve you from the task of entertaining me." "There's a candle on the slab outside the door," said the man with the withered hand, looking at my feet as he addressed me. "But if you go to the Red Room tonight—" "This night of all nights," said the woman softly, "you go alone." "Very well," I answered shortly. "And which way do I go?" "You go along the passage for a bit," said he, nodding his head at on his shoulder at the door, "until you come to a spiral staircase, and on the second landing is a door covered with green baize. Go through that and down the long corridor to the end, and the Red Room is on your left, up the steps." "Have I got that right?" I said, and repeated his directions. He corrected me one in particular. "And you are really going?" said the man with the shade, looking at me again for the third time with that queer, unnatural tilting of the face. "This night of all nights," whispered the old woman. "It is what I came for," I said, and moved towards the door. As I did so, the old man with the shade rose and staggered around the table so as to be closer to the others and to the fire. At the door I turned and looked at them and saw that they were all close together, dark against the firelight, staring at me over their shoulders with an intent expression on their ancient faces. "Good night," I said, setting the door open. "It's your own choosing," said the man with the withered arm. I left the door wide open until the candle was well alight, and then I shut them in and walked down the chilly, echoing passage. Okay, so I would now like you to take 2 minutes to try and predict what might happen later on in the story, please. Pause the video whilst you do. Okay, your next task then. How would you describe the old people? I'd like for you to write a list of words, please. Then say if you would consider them to be Gothic characters and why. So first of all, you're making a list of words, and then you can write a sentence to tell me if you consider them Gothic characters and why or why not. 5 minutes, please. Pause the video whilst you do. Let's have a little look then. So these are some of the words that I have come up with. Poor dental hygiene, for starters. Patronising. Inhospitable. Unfriendly to guests, basically. Decrepit. Ancient. Deformed. Menacing. And creepy. So, personally, I think these Gothic characters could be considered Gothic because of the ancient, because of their sort of ancient mystery and their menacing creepiness, definitely. Next up then, would you consider them Gothic characters, and if so, why? For each of these old characters, I want you to find at least 2 quotes to support the idea that they are Gothic characters. So don't forget, you've got the old woman, the old man, and the second old man. So you are looking for at least 6 quotes, okay? So it might take you between 15 and 20 minutes to get this done. Pause the video whilst you do, please. So these are the quotes that I have found for them. For the old woman, 8 and 20 years you have lived and never seen the likes of this house, I reckon. That's why I think that she's a bit patronising. And many things to see and sorrow for. Well, you know, she's definitely foreshadowing something there. The old man, the man with the withered hand, gave the newcomer a short glance of positive dislike. So, inhospitable, unfriendly to guests. A monstrous shadow of him crouched up on the wall and mocked his action as he poured and drank. That definitely seems Gothic to me. The second old man, he supported himself by the help of a crutch. His eyes were covered by a shade, and his lower lip, half averted, hung pale and pink from his decaying yellow teeth. I caught a momentary glimpse of his eyes, small and bright and inflamed. Then he began to cough and splutter again. So these are the quotes that I've picked. You might have gotten different ones. So, let's have a look at what we can do here then. And many things to see and sorrow for. So, I have picked a key word here, and I've picked sorrow. I think the word sorrow helps to portray this character as Gothic because melancholy, or, depression, is a common theme of Gothic literature. Her use of the word suggests that either something sorrowful has happened to her, or she could perhaps be foreshadowing that something sorrowful will happen in the story. So this is the paragraph that I have written. Your task now is to do exactly the same thing, keyword analysis, okay? For each quote you've chosen, highlight a single word, just like I did, which you think is the most effective in conveying that character as Gothic. Underneath, I'd like you to write a sentence or two to explain why you've chosen that word. So I've given you some sentence starters here. It's probably going to take you between 15 and 20 minutes to get this done. So do make sure that you try to analyse this as closely as possible. Okay? So pause the video whilst you do that. Your final task then, for the last 5 minutes of the lesson, I would like for you to please write a list of different things that you can describe about a character to make them unsettling and creepy, please. Okay? So I don't want you to just write, something as broad as appearance, okay? What specific things can you describe about a character to make them seem unsettling and creepy? Okay guys, I hope that you have enjoyed the lesson and I will see you soon.